Welcome to the Stefan Levira podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. And my guest today is Sergej Kotliar. Welcome to the show, Sergej.
Thanks, Stefan. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks very much for coming on. So, guys, just to introduce Sergej to the listeners, Sergej is a very well-known Bitcoin advocate and speaker. He is the CEO of Bitref. So you can find them at bitrefill.com, and they allow the purchase of online vouchers and mobile phone top-ups all around the world. Right. And so just so listeners know what to expect, what I'm hoping to cover in this episode, particularly in the first half of the episode, is around the merchant experience in taking Bitcoin and Lightning payments, and then, talking about the challenges and the benefits of that. So if you're an entrepreneur thinking about taking crypto and Bitcoin payments, this is ideal for you. And in the second half of the episode, we can talk a little bit more generally about Bitcoin and Lightning adoption. So, so let's go into a little more detail on that, Sergej. So I think stories are what make it real for people. So maybe tell us your story on, taking Bitcoin and Lightning payments with Bitrefill.
Right. So I guess if we look at how the company came about almost 4 years ago now, it was on an experimental basis. It was, I would say, the mood was very similar then to what it is now. In the broader Bitcoin community, people were trying stuff, experimenting, and wanted to get in there, and had heard about all of these different scams and problems that happen in the crypto world. So I figured let's try something simple, and let's sell something. What can we sell? Well, there's something digital, right? So we don't have to bother with the delivery. And what kind of digital things are there? Well, there's gift cards, there's prepaid phone refills. I managed to get us access to an API for prepaid phone refills. Launched the very first website, which actually used BitPay as a payment service, and just pushed the button, and somehow it got a lot of attention all over the world. And we had users then coming in from countries like Bangladesh and India and South Africa and so on. And that kind of set off a process of thinking, okay, what is this? What are these prepaid phones? Okay, there's billions of people that have them, and so on. And gradually, sort of on that way, the company kind of happened a little bit, I think, on its own, in that the market has been pulling some stuff out of us. And from my perspective, we've always had the same direction, which is to move towards a world where Bitcoin is used as a transactional currency, where people are using it to pay people. I guess medium of exchange and all that. About the Lightning stuff, as you may recall, in 2017, we were starting to see indications of transaction fees going up, and this sparked this whole political debate, and people were using merchants such as us as some type of bat to swing in the argument. And sometimes people were talking for us and saying things that we weren't really agreeing with. And so we kind of got pulled in to all of those things and into these discussions for setting things straight. When it comes to Lightning, from my perspective, we've kind of always known, or at least I've sort of always known, that this is where it's going to end up. Before I started Bitrefill, I was close to joining another startup here in Sweden called StrawPay, who were this was in 2014, were working on payment channels. So they had identified that eventually the Bitcoin network won't scale for each transaction to be sent to everybody. and then they identified that payment channels would be the solution, and they started then working on, I guess, the best way of doing payment channels with the technology that we had then, which is pre-SegWit. And they were working on a setup for a little bit closer to the Visa model of like different classes of. There were some elements that would require some trust, but it was largely trustless between the end user and the connecting node. So so this was kind of always. Not always, but since many years back, known that eventually like something like this is where it's going to be. I sat when Taj Dria and Joseph Poon presented the Lightning presentation. I was actually in the audience, and I was taking pictures and sending them to the guys at Strope, saying, "Hey, look, look what the Americans are up to these days."
Oh yeah.
So it's been kind of known since always that something like this, and I think also if you think about and count backwards from the goal, if the goal is that we're in a world where Bitcoin or even broader cryptocurrency, if you so want, is used transactionally day to day, then that requires something, and that something might as well be Lightning. It's the best candidate that we've seen this far. And so when it came for us, it started with in the last summer, we had then an intern named Justin Camarena, who was now getting a little bit of fame in the Lightning world and is working with us since a year back, who was playing around with Lightning on his free time, and we were like, let's see what we can do with an experimental setup, and we just plugged it in, tested it out, and a little bit on that way it's been. It's like from what I think about technology is that it's like from my perspective, it's more interesting when it's being used for something real. That's even if that means that you're not using the latest, fanciest, bleeding edgiest, but whenever something like a real financial transaction happens with it, I think that's kind of like that's what really matters to me, I would say.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think what you've done is you were really one of the pioneers. You and your company Bitrefill had pioneered the use of Lightning payments online to take payments at a dramatically lower cost than any other merchant was able to do, because the fees with Lightning are just so much lower. Do you want to talk a little bit about any potential challenges that your company faced in terms of taking Lightning payments?
Well, I guess it's always there's this weird enthusiasm about Lightning that when you mention, I mentioned in an interview a couple of weeks ago, and I said that everything in cryptocurrency has different trade-offs, and Lightning has some trade-offs too, and that became like a headline. Bitref CEO says that Lightning has trade-offs, which is funny. It is true, but people are still seeing it, I think, like a magical thing. But some challenges that we've been dealing with, I think this far we're still at a phase where Lightning users are the tinkering kind. So it's not even it's not even the early adopters. It's the innovators. It's the people who use it with command line. We have some users that use GUI wallets like Eclair and the Bitcoin Lightning wallet on Android. I would say we're still waiting for for the release of all of the different neutrino-based wallets, such as Zap, which will be a good wallet for iOS, and Lightning Labs' own wallet, and a couple of other projects that we still haven't seen. There's still no, I would say, no good wallet for iOS, at least not that is available mainnet in the App Store. And so
Yeah, sure,
that
sure.
means that also probably the challenges that we've seen this far are going to be different from the challenges that we see now. From what I understand, many of these projects are very close to releasing. So soon we're going to go into a new phase where everybody can easily install a Lightning wallet and start really using it.
Yeah, it's a great point you make around how at the start it was really the tinkerers, the people who were hashtag reckless, the people who were really willing to just go out there and try it. And they were willing to risk losing a little bit of money because they wanted to be one of the first people using Lightning to buy real things on Bitrefill. Now, let's maybe talk about some of the benefits. So I think number one, that, you know, if you're just listening and you want to understand what are the benefits, well, number one, think about the lower fees, right? So if Lightning fees might be 1 Satoshi, and if 1 USD today buys something like 15,000 Satoshis, this is phenomenally lower than any other merchant processing available. So that's one big benefit. Do you want to talk about any other benefits that you saw, perhaps lower customer support tickets or just ease of
about
interface?
The fee stuff, I would say that that's not even, at this point, it's not the primary driver. Fees on Bitcoin are currently trivially low, and I've even gone as far as to go on record saying that I don't think we're going to see another month-long period like we had during the new year of high fees. I think Lightning is interesting, like for a future scenario when we see a similar level of congestion, which I don't think is going to happen for a while. Not because there isn't demand, but simply because of all the different other scaling technologies that have been adopted on the network, such as mainly batching, kind of resolves a lot of the pressure for a while. But when it comes to benefits, so the user experience ends up a lot easier. So one of the big issues that we've been dealing with regular on-chain transactions is that if the user has to copy the address and the amount, then there is a high risk of something going wrong. What we've learned is, and this has been, I think, known for a long while, is if you let users make mistakes, they will make mistakes, and they will assume things that maybe make sense to them. Maybe a user will send a little bit less Bitcoins than what was written on the invoice. Maybe the user's wallet calculated a US dollar amount that is the same as the gift card, but we calculated a different amount, and that creates a discrepancy, maybe an underpayment, and we need to handle those. And if we introduce leniency into our system, as we had in the past, and that gets abused, so that's problematic as well.
Sure. So let's talk a bit about what happens in those scenarios. So let's say a user had accidentally paid the wrong amount, or underpaid, or just underpaid the invoice. Then what's involved from a manual processing point of view for you guys at Bitrefill?
From our perspective, we try to handle this stuff automatically as far as possible. We display a view to the user saying, "Hey, you underpaid by this much. Please send another this much BTC to this address." Or we offer them, or type in your address, your own Bitcoin address, and you'll get a refund of the money that you paid. And that solves a lot of it, but still it creates less than great user experience. Sometimes users don't really understand what happened, what went wrong, what was the problem. Sometimes it was the wallet that they used or the exchange. A lot of users, this is something that people don't talk about, but like a lot of transactions are sent directly from exchanges. And their exchanges sometimes, for example, will take a fee out of the amount that is being sent, which in the end means that we don't receive the amount that was expected, and so on. So, and add to this that people from all over the world don't always speak English, and so on. And there's a lot of user confusion that can happen. And with Lightning, it kind of it forces certain patterns. So it forces that there is either a QR code that you scan, or that there's this long Lightning invoice string that you have to copy paste. But in either case, there's a much lower risk of something going wrong. And on top of that, there's also the questions involving transactions. So a regular Bitcoin transaction ends up in the mempool and then is waiting for being included in a block. We try to process them even without confirmations, but we have certain rules and heuristics that many transactions pass, but some don't. But a lot of different things can happen. Suddenly someone makes a couple of megabytes of transactions that outbid the user's transaction, and they get stuck. And the user is often eager, especially when dealing with phone refills. When someone run out of data on their phone, they're quite eager to get it resolved quickly. And it's not always a great experience to wait for an undetermined amount of time until a block comes in. And the way things work with Lightning is sort of that the transaction has already happened, right? The transaction that opens the channel is something that the user needs to resolve within their wallet, so that it separates in a nicer way all of that stuff, and lets the wallet handle all of this, so that when the user comes to us, there's no need for on-chain Bitcoin transactions. They can just scan and go.
Yeah, fantastic. I like that. And I think I'd summarize that as Lightning basically forces the correct payment to the right address and to the correct payment amount. And not only that, because it happens instantly, you don't have to wait for this undetermined period of time, because with Bitcoin, the blocks could happen in 5 minutes, it could happen in 10 minutes, or it could happen in 1 hour. Right. So that is another huge benefit. Yeah. The other question I had was just around education, because your company, obviously, the use of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is still relatively new for many people. To what extent has your company and your staff had to spend time educating people on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin?
So I guess that has varied a little bit over time. We still have the thing that we share within the company, all of the customer service, so that everybody gets to interact with at least some of the customers, and at least when something goes wrong, we get to interact with them and fix it, and that's a good way to getting to know the users. I just lost my train of thought here.
Yeah, so I mean, have you got any stories that you can tell in terms of times you've had to help a customer
originally
deal
we kind
with?
Of made a line in the sand that, hey, we're not going to be selling people on Bitcoin, and we're not going to be innovating new things, but gradually, like, those things have we've kind of been forced to do a lot of that as well. So when it comes to educating, I think we do a lot of stuff, but we also see that others use us as an education tool. So if you, for example, search for Bitrefill on YouTube, you're going to see walkthroughs and tutorials in all kinds of languages with people, painting on the screen and explaining how the payment flow happens and so on. From when it comes to the Lightning stuff, we've kind of had to, in some cases, explain, and we always write blog posts that are very like do this for each new feature that we create. But again, I think we're also going to move into another phase with the Lightning stuff when we're going to see a more of a mainstream adoption of those things. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it's like there's almost this externality that is being born, or the companies that take crypto earlier have to kind of wear that cost of dealing with customers who aren't as familiar with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in a sense, you kind of indirectly spend time educating customers, whether that's customer support tickets, or more time spent doing blog posts, teaching people, okay, this is the correct way to do it. Do you anticipate that over time that will become easier with better wallets and better interfaces that help automatically deal with these things for the customers?
Everything is improving quickly. Like we discussed already, like the UX benefits of Lightning are huge. Now we just need to get to the point where there's wallets in everybody's hand, and then we're probably going to see quick iterations on the wallets, finding out which parts of the UX assumptions that have been made work, which parts don't work, what causes user confusion. I think when it comes to Lightning, a lot of I think the wallets carry a lot of the educational burden. Which I don't know how fair that is either, because wallets usually aren't even making that much money. But I think with the Lightning stuff, it happens a little bit naturally, that it's the wallet that gets the questions.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, of course, it's hard that we need to educate people, but that's cost of doing business. I mean, if we didn't, I think every company needs to educate its users to some extent, and help its users figure out how to use whichever thing it is that it is. So I don't know if it's that sort of.
Yeah, sure. And I think you mentioned a good point earlier as well, that to some extent these explanations and education is crowdsourced, when there are other people out there saying, oh, look, here's how you do a bit refill transaction online, and here's a YouTube video.
There's a huge community of enthusiasts. So a lot of the stuff, I mean, we're all on Twitter these days, and seeing the huge amounts of thinking and both philosophy, but also tutorials, and like there is a lot of people who are trying to help this become a thing, and those some of those people code, and some of those people don't code, and they usually promote and explain, and I think that's working pretty neatly in the ecosystem that we have.
Sure. How about getting staff who are crypto savvy? Has this kind of talent been hard to come by?
Yeah, it has. I would say that it's actually easier with the Lightning stuff, and that's something that is very curious, at least to me. That it seems like young people that can code are drawn to Lightning in a sort of intrigued, I guess, and start tinkering with it. So we get a lot of really good inbound, at least on the engineering side and the backend side. We're seeing a lot of really good people reach out and want to work with us. I'd say the difficulty, and that's also, I guess, an interesting topic to discuss, is that different personality types are drawn to different things, in Bitcoin, we have a large amount of, how would you say, like the back end or algorithmically minded type people that are drawn to it. But on the other hand, I would say that we have a lack of the visually minded aesthetic design, UX, that kind of people that is still in short supply. And so that's something that we maybe should think about, how we can attract more of that kind of people.
Yeah, fascinating. I hadn't thought about it like that, but it actually does make a lot of sense. Okay, that's yeah. I mean, they're the key points I was interested to cover with in terms of Bitrefill and your experience with taking Lightning. Let's now change to discussing a little bit more just broadly about Bitcoin and Lightning adoption. So those of us who are kind of more monetary maximalists and believe that Bitcoin will someday be worth millions per Bitcoin, that kind of person, probably myself included, likely doesn't want to spend a large portion of the Bitcoin stash for various reasons. That could be maintaining privacy, not wanting to pay capital gains tax, or at least not yet, or not wanting to pay unnecessary exchange fees in trying to spend and replace, let's say. But I know you've also got some thoughts in terms of what Bitcoiners can focus on in terms of the medium of exchange component.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in what you just brought up. I think, generally, of course, someone who acquired Bitcoins online for the purposes of investment is not going to go out and the first thing to do is to go and buy something with them, right? Nobody buys something online in order to buy something online. That's not the right way to look at it. But I think that, for example, already people who have been invested in Bitcoin for a longer time and have had their coins go up in value, those people are very eager to spend some of it, and we also see already today a pretty big demand from people that are eager to earn coins. And I think that that's something that we as a community should pay more attention to, because we have, according to different surveys, there's some tens of millions of people that own coins in some capacity, but there's probably 10 times or even 100 times more people that are aware of Bitcoin, that don't maybe super know how it works or what it is, or care about all of the sound money and all of the other stuff that we can discuss. People who just see it as, it's money. It's foreign money, and it's better money than, in most cases, it's better money than the regular money that they use every day. And so we see some of that on Bitrefill, that people shout and are asking, like, how can I earn coins here? And there is a pretty big already, I would say, ecosystem of people that are earning money in Bitcoin. Everything from proper salaries and consultancy fees and things like that, but also really minor stuff like rewards for small stuff, or faucets, or little micro tasks. And faucets, if you look at a site that not many Western Bitcoiners know, which is freebitco.im, which I always bring up as one of my favorite Bitcoin companies. They have a couple of million users. I'm looking at their page now to see if they brag with that or not. But they have a couple of million users, and it's basically a faucet. So you go in there, you solve a CAPTCHA, you get some Bitcoins for free. There's some gambling features and some other little stuff. But it's basically there you go. They have 16 million registered users. And not many of the Western Bitcoiners that are all about the hodling mentality know about like that there is an ecosystem of that stuff as well, which I think is super interesting and super exciting. That there are people that value Bitcoin as money and maybe for different reasons don't want to buy it or can't buy it, or maybe don't even care about Bitcoin, right? I think again, if we count backwards from the success case, I think nobody thinks that we're going to live in a world where all 7 billion people are Bitcoin enthusiasts and maximalists and go to conferences, right? Most of the people are going to be, okay, this is money. I can earn it with work, and I can pay people and pay services with it. And I think that we already see like slight indications of that kind of stuff, and I think it's still very early. But probably if I was starting something entirely new, I was probably like looking in that area for opportunities, because I think that there's a huge demand for earning coins, and it's something that is going to be desperately needed for us to have a circulating economy. Plus, that it's needed for in countries where maybe there's no exchanges, or even if there's legal issues and things like that. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's an interesting way to put it. I think what we can talk about is how many people frame it as merchant adoption, but actually what you're discussing here is more like earner adoption. People trying to earn Bitcoins from online payments. And I think that's the other really cool thing with Bitcoin and with Lightning is this kind of unstoppable payments narrative. It can enable people to work and get paid online for services.
We created this meme of merchant adoption, which is it's a clunky expression. No child thinks about merchant adoption. It's something that we learned, and we've been doing that in the Bitcoin world since I guess 2012 or something. And I guess we've gotten to a certain point, but I also know, because I run one of the bigger merchant services out there, so I kind of know like what the demand is and so on, and I think that we should, as a community, similar efforts that have been spent on merchant adoption on all levels, both on low a person going to bug their local cafe to accept Bitcoin payments, to the CEOs of Bitcoin companies pitching it into Expedia. I think in a similar way, as a community, we should start thinking about earner adoption or payer adoption. Maybe bug the same cafe for paying out tip money in Bitcoin to their staff, or bug online gig economy sites to start paying out in Bitcoin. Things like that. I think there's a lot of stuff to be done there.
So I think that would be one way, is looking at some of these two-way market companies. So something like an eBay or an Airbnb, these kinds of companies allowing payout in Bitcoin.
Right. And I think that a lot of people would actually be quite happy to get their payouts that way. Again, sort of if you think about it from a perspective that, and most people in the world live in countries where the local currency isn't all that good. Most people in the world live in a world where you kind of know that the local currency has a constant inflation and a constant risk for hyperinflation at any given time. And in such a world, I think a lot of people would be very happy to get their Airbnb earnings in Bitcoin, for example.
Okay, and then what are some other things that you think, people in the Bitcoin community, as it were, what could they do to help earner adoption?
Well, I guess that's a big question right now that we need to experiment with and try stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Both pitching it to existing companies, starting new companies. I know of several projects that have now or before tried to create something like a Fiverr or something, but for Bitcoin. I haven't really seen any of them take off in a big way yet, but I think that there's a lot of interesting task task-based concepts that can be tried, and just paying people paying people in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Here in Sweden, we used to have at the local meetups. We would I don't know if that still happens, but we would always try to we would pay in regular money, but we would try to tip the waitress in Bitcoin. So by the way, you should check in on that because probably some of those waitresses are doing quite well.
They got quite rich out of it.
If they still have the wallet, which is another of the issues that we have.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess, do you have any comments or stories that you could tell, Western listeners about uses of Bitrefill that might not be obvious to the Western world?
Right. So I guess one such thing is that when someone finds out about Bitcoin in the first place, either from a friend or at some type of meetup, everybody's first reaction is, it's a scam, right? And what happens then is the other person says, it's not a scam. Here, let me show you. I can buy stuff with it. And we've seen quite a bit of activity like that, where Bitrefill is used as sort of to prove the point that Bitcoin is money, that it can be converted into things that are valuable online. And I think that's quite cool. It also has a downside because it also means that scammers will also use Bitrefill to convince people that their particular scam is real money, because the scammers try to conflate whatever scam that they're doing with the Bitcoin itself,
Right.
in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's something that we kind of need to struggle with in different ways, but it's a little bit tricky. Some of the other stuff, I mean, generally when you're selling, like we are selling digital goods that are valuable, that's a category of products that is like the highest rated risk for fraud. Well, simply because if you're a hacker and you bought 100,000 stolen credit cards somewhere, then you're going to try to cash them out by buying different types of digital goods, and then maybe even in different ways reselling them for cash at a discount. And so some sites like this, there's a local gift card site here that has opening hours. It's open, it's open 9 to 6. And I was thinking along, it took a while until I realized, why does it have opening hours? Well, it has opening hours because there is a human that is sitting there and going through the orders to make sure that there's nothing untoward.
Right.
That there's no, right. And so by working with Bitcoin, we kind of don't need to deal with that type of problem at all. The money that we get, we know that we got it. There's other problems that we need to deal with, of course, but that particular one is something that is not an issue, and it also means that we can offer our services in a lot of countries where where the online payment infrastructures are lacking, or are not trusted, or things like that. Whereas we can be like, hey, it just works. You can be almost anywhere you want.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. And what about the wealth effect? Have you seen a bit of a wealth effect in terms of, if Bitcoin has just gone through a big bull market, did you see a lot of more people spending on Bitrefill compared to if, the price is lower
Sure.
or there was a bear market?
Sure, absolutely. It is absolutely like that. And I think, I don't know if the wealth effect is necessarily the right framework to look at it, but because you could also just see it as that a person does mental accounting, some type of subconscious portfolio management, and if Bitcoin is up and they are like feeling that they maybe have more Bitcoin than they would like to be exposed to compared to their other assets, then those people are more likely to be spending.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's like a
and
rebalancing.
if they get right. Yeah, in a way. And if obviously if somebody has both a Bitcoin option and a non-Bitcoin option, and the person is trying to get more Bitcoins, then it doesn't make sense for them to be spending it. But it is absolutely the case that we see a lot more purchases when Bitcoin is going up. There's even nuances in that, which we've tried to catch in different ways. Because like when there is, for example, if there's panic and people are just trying to dump the coins really fast, then too we see a spike in our volumes. Whereas if Bitcoin is going up rapidly, then at the time that it is going up, people are kind of holding on to the coins a little bit longer. But when it's up, they'll be spending it again.
Right, so it's almost a difference in the speed of the price rise that drives different behaviors in terms of purchasing.
Well, in a way,
yeah.
But I mean, the wealth effect framework is more right than it is wrong. So it is a good way of looking at it, and that's also the thing, is that we know right now that there's some, like on the order of tens of millions of people that have coins. If there's another bull run, then many of those are going to go into the spending category, and that's going to be an interesting time, and that's kind of what we're building for, embracing for.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the cyclical nature of some, Bitcoin and crypto businesses. They have had to sort of weather the downtrends and then kind of make hay while the sun shines when the bull run is happening. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely to some extent like that. You can also sort of say that when there is a hype, a lot of effort goes into just keeping up with it. Whereas when the hype is lower, you have time and energy to build new stuff and improve, to make sure that you can deal with the next hype when that comes.
Yeah. That might also help. Yeah,
but there is definitely the cyclical effect, and there's even things like how capital is invested. When at the peak of the hype cycle, obviously a lot of people in crypto are feeling rich, and there you have a wealth effect, because then they're very eager to invest their coins into projects, and the projects in turn start using that capital and hire people, which means that they gradually liquidate some of their coins, either all at once or stepwise. And that's kind of like, that is that is the selling pressure, or the burn rate of the ecosystem, which is also, I think, not entirely been discussed. Like we discuss the burn rate of miners and how they're liquidating coins, but it's also the case that startups start, like after a bull market, startups receive capital and start spending that capital, and that spending creates a selling pressure. And I think that if you view Bitcoin from the perspective of it being like a country with its own currency, then this does resemble in some ways a business cycle. That in an upcycle, capital gets invested, which in turn gradually creates downwards pressure. Downwards pressure creates more efficiency, which which creates a new upcycle, and so on.
Yeah, fascinating about the way the cycles apply in Bitcoin and Bitcoin businesses. Okay, so Sergey, do you have any other thoughts around, what you see as potential opportunities for companies who do Bitcoin and Lightning well? What kind of opportunities are there in this space?
That's a really good question. I would say that the opportunities that I'm seeing are the ones that don't necessarily involve direct conversion to or from fiat currency. So things like earning, things what are different ways that people can acquire coins, what are different ways that people can pay other Bitcoiners in other countries to do things. I think in those areas there's a lot of stuff to be done, and a lot of really cool and successful businesses that also don't depend on the goodwill of regulation, and that can be more sure to survive, but like to go strong through a period if the regulation in the country in question turns to the negative.
Yeah, okay. All right. And I suppose just if you've got any closing thoughts, Sergey, or perhaps maybe for a closing question, we can ask you, what do you think the Bitcoin ecosystem needs most over the next year or two?
Well, I think I'm going to be talking about earning again.
Yeah.
Because I think that is what we need. I think that there's opportunities, if nothing else, in Bitcoiners earning money by onboarding other people to become Bitcoiners. So something similar to what local Bitcoins is doing, for example, where people can earn a buck by becoming a sort of distributed on-ramp, off-ramp. But other than that, I think that we also, I guess, what I would like to see is more experimenting with real stuff, both when it comes to like use mainnet for things. Maybe it's okay. Maybe there are people that are reckless enough to try stuff, and maybe it's okay if some things fail, as long as we communicate very clearly and use wise approaches to mitigate potential downsides. But I would say that that's one of those. Like, let's try to, especially with Lightning now, where we're seeing a lot of really interesting sort of hackathons and small projects. I'm curious to see what are some things where real world value is being exchanged. What are things that can be built in that regard? because that's what's going to speed up the learning cycle. Because when you're only dealing with tinkerers, or you're only dealing with proof of concepts and so on, you're not really learning. You're learning somewhat, but you're not getting the full feedback from the market and what the market wants. And I think that we should all be more aggressive with testing stuff, at least on like each on themselves.
Yeah.
Not to encourage other people to necessarily be reckless, and especially to understate the risks, but to sort of not be afraid to try some real stuff. I think we're getting to that point where we should be doing real things. And this is also, I guess, one of the reasons why, if you look at the altcoin ecosystem, where there's a lot of different proofs of concepts and partnerships and that kind of stuff, but like, where is the real world usage? And a lot of the real world usage is in the Bitcoin world, which is cool, and I think that we should continue to do the real world stuff, even if it's sometimes maybe a little bit boring.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think that's a great way to summarize it then. So I think it's basically, our conversation has been a lot about earner adoption and really making Bitcoin work in the real world for real applications, and just as it mainstreams. So listeners, if you want to find Sergej, you can find him online. His Twitter handle is @Zigamon. And bitrefill.com. Have you got anywhere else that you want the listeners to, where you want them to find you?
No, that's so good. And there's the Bitrefill Twitter account as well, @Bitrefill.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks very much for coming on, Sergej.
Thanks so much for having me.
So that was my conversation with Sergej Kotliar. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I found it particularly interesting in terms of his story of accepting Bitcoin over Lightning Network and the benefits that represents for customers. I also thought it was really cool how he mentioned the increased ability to attract young technical talent who are drawn to the Lightning Network and want to work on this. Lastly, it was a really interesting reframe in terms of earner adoption instead of pushing merchant adoption. So that's another thing to think about as well. Remember to subscribe to my podcast. Search Stefan Livera Podcast on iTunes or your podcast app. If you enjoy it, please give me a 5-star rating and share it with your friends. That's it from me. Thanks, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.